Today's daf is daf Chaf Hey, and we got up to the Mishnah. Nishpach Adam al Ritzpa ve'asofo posel. So in Kabbalas Hadam, the dam has to go directly from the neck of the animal after shechita right into the kli shares, where the receptacle where he receives the dam. If the dam went onto the floor, then it's posel. The implication of the Mishnah, however, is that if he receives the dam in the mizrak, in the receptacle, directly from the neck of the animal, and then it spills from the mizrak onto the floor, then he can collect it, and it's kosher. Tana Rabbana, we learned in a brisa. V'lakacha kohena Mashiach midam hapar. Okay, this pasuk in Vayikra Dalid is part of the chatos that's brought by the Kohen HaMashiach. And when it says here in the pasuk v'lokach, it's referring to Kabbalah. And we had a long discussion about this in the previous Amud, that v'lokach means he receives the dam. And the dam, and the pasuk says midam hapor. Now, what does it mean midam hapor? So we'll see later on that midam hapor means many different things. For example, he has to receive all the blood that he has to receive, not part of it. Also, he has to receive it midam hapor directly from the par. But the Brisa now is deriving a third halacha from this pasuk, midam hanefesh v'lo midam ha'or v'lo midam hatamtzis. So in terms of the blood that comes out of the neck of the animal, there's blood that comes out early, there's blood that comes out late, and then there's what's called dam hanefesh, which is the middle dam. So for example, the dam that comes out after the dam hanefesh, let's say the enough dam has left the neck of the animal that it's going to die, but more dam is still spurting out of the animal, that's called dam tamtzis. So that's the later dam. However, there's also dam that comes out before the actual lifeblood, life-sustaining blood comes out, and that's called dam ha'or. So, for example, when the Kohen slaughters the animal and he slices into the skin right on the surface level of the neck of the animal, that dam that comes out is premature. That's not the dam on which there's a halacha of Kabbalah and following Kabbalah's Rika. It's got to be that dam in the nefesh. It's after following the first spurt of blood, but before the last spurt of blood. It's that middle spurt of blood that is called dam hanefesh. What else do we derive from the two words midam hapar? Midam hapar, dam mehapar yikablenu, means that the dam has to go directly min hapar, from the neck of the cow into the mizrak, and there can't be anything in between. And if the dam falls on the ground, then he cannot collect it from the ritzpah, because the Torah says midam hapar, which means dam me hapar, that the dam goes directly from the neck of the animal into the mizrak, into the receptacle. Now, if you read carefully the midam, the word midam, which has a mem at the beginning, that prefix mem means in English some of the blood. And the Gemara now has to prove from a statement of Rav, and Rav in turn from a pasuk, that you don't interpret the word midam literally as being some of the blood. If you're going to maintain the, let's say the pshuto shel mikra, that midam apar kidich siv means, if we take it literally, that it means midam vafilu miktas dam, some of the blood, right? That's the midam. And even if he takes some blood of the dam hanefesh, of the lifeblood, that would be sufficient. That's against Rav. Rav taught us that Ashochet Tzorch Shikabel es kol domo shel par, that all of the lifeblood of the par has to be received in the Mizrach. That means that, again, after the initial spurt, which is called Dam Ha'or, he has to receive all the Dam HaNefesh without any exception. And then after he gets all the Dam HaNefesh, then there's Dam HaTamtzis, which is the remaining blood, the Shirayim of the blood, and that doesn't have to be received by the Kohen. Shenemar, how does Rav know this? That the Kohen has to receive all the Dam HaNefesh. Shenemar ve'es kol domo yishpach. Now, this pasuk, es kol domo yishpach, at the face of it, has nothing to do with our discussion, because this pasuk, ves kol dam hapar yishpach, in Vayikra Perek Dalid, is referring to what's called Shfichas Shirayim. And again, a lot of issues in Maseches Zevachim that we haven't even touched upon have to do with this category called Shirayim. Shirayim means any leftover dam after the zrika of the dam on the mizbech, and the kranos on mizbech. That leftover dam has to be poured on something called the Yesod HaMizbeach, which is the what word can I use for Yesod? The base. That would be a good word. The base of the Mizbeach. So there's a jutting out base on the bottom of the Mizbeach, and that's where they did Shfichas Hashirayim. Now, our discussion here in Rav is about the Dam HaNefesh that's being that the Kohen is Makabel in the Mizrach, not the leftover Dam that has to be poured on the Yesod HaMizbeach. So the Gemara is going to raise this objection to Rav. But in any event, what did Rav see? Es kol domo, all of the dam. And Rav understands that all of the dam is referring to Dam HaNefesh in the original Kabbalah, not to Shirayim, kipshuto shel mikra. So now we have a problem, because we started with the pasuk mi dam hapor, which means some of the dam. And now Rav is saying, no, it's got to be all the dam. So this is really fascinating. What in Hilchas Drashos, in other words, how Torah Shebal Peh interprets the Torah Shebechsav, we have a principle, Kosova Gorin Umosifim V'Darshin, which means in this case that we take the mem from the word midam and we put it as if it was hapar. So it's dam me hapor. It's not some of the blood, but rather the blood of the cow. So the mem is moved over to the word par. But in fact, how do you know that you have to receive all the dam hanefesh? That we're going to derive from the pasuk that refers to Shvich HaShirayim, which is es kol damo yishpal. So Gemara says, Gufa Amar Rabbi Yehuda Merava Shochet Tzorch Shikabel es kol damo shel par ves shenemar ves kol dam hapor yishofech v'ho b'shirayim ksiv. How could Rav derive conclusions and base his principle on a pasuk that's not referring to the dam that was received by the Kohen in a mizrach for the purpose of zrika gam mizbeach, but rather the dam afterwards that's taken in order to be poured on the base of the mizbeach? And the Gemara says, "Eino inyan l'shirayim do lesa lekule dam tneu inyan bekabbalah." It's impossible to learn this pasuk literally as referring to Shirayim, because Shirayim means part of the dam that was left over. And here the pasuk says, midam hapar. I'm sorry, the pasuk says, v'es kol domo yishpoch, all of its dam. How can it be all of its dam? It's referring to the Shirayim, which Shirayim is only the remnant of the dam? And the answer is, in Eino Inyan, we have a rule in drushos that we can take a pasuk out of its context in order to justify the pasuk. Omar Rabbi Yehuda Omar Shmuel, Hashochet tzarich she'abia sakin lemala. Okay, let's stop and try to figure out what's going on here. If all the dam has to go directly from the neck of the animal into the mizrach, what about the dam that's on the slaughtering knife? Some of the dam gets stuck on the knife. And if that dam is part of the dam that has to get into the mizrach, it's going to go from the knife into the mizrach. And that's not acceptable. The dam has to go from the neck of the animal into the mizrach. So to solve this problem, Shmuel requires of the shochet that when he's slaughtering the animal, he should immediately lift up the sakin in such a way that he takes the dam that is attached to the knife and prevents it from going into the mizrach. Because again, as we said before, if the dam goes from the neck of the animal to the sakin and from the sakin into the mizrach, that's going to be dam posel, and it's going to posel all the dam that's already in the mizrach. Shenemar v'lokach midam hapor, v'lo midam hapor v'dover acher. Right? We said the v'lokach is referring to the kabbalah sadam. And here's another halach that we derive from midam hapor, that there can't be any in-between state in which the dam goes on to another klisharis, which is the knife, and from that klisharis into the mizrach for kabbalah. So the Gemara asks, "V'dam sakin b'may mekaneachle." Now, if you have to guarantee that the blood of the knife that got stuck on the knife should not go into the mizrach, then what you want to do is you want to clear off the dam from the knife, from the sakin. How do you do that? Amar Abaye b'sfas mizrach k'dichsiv k'porei zav. So again, the pasuk he's quoting is in Ezra. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, where do you smear or wipe off the dam that got stuck onto the knife? On the outside rim of the mizrach. You can't wipe it off on the inside rim of the mizrach, because then the dam from the knife is going to go into the mizrach, and that's going to passel the dam in the mizrach. But what you could do is you could wipe it off on the outside rim of the mizrach. And Abai derives this from a pasuk in Ezra that says Kipore Zav, golden bowls. So what did we see in this pasuk in Ezra? The golden bowls refers to those bowls, or what we call a mizrach, a receptacle in which the dam was received by the Kohen from the neck of the animal, and then the Kohen would take that receptacle, bring it over to the mizbech, which is called holacha, and then do the zrika. Now, the word kippar literally translates as a bowl, and the word kippar also means to wipe off. Like, for example, the Ramban is famous for saying that the word kapara, which means atonement, means to wipe off the sins. And here he wipes off the dam that's attached to the knife by using the bowl, the kippar, and wiping the slaughtering knives along the edges of these bowls. Omar Rav Chizda, Omar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Hashochet tzarech sheyitein v'ridin l'toch hakli.